Hey everyone, it's been a good while since I've made a video, but now I'm back, and today what we're going to do is learn more about Ansible facts, and that should help us better prepare for this RHCE objective right here. It's just called facts. In this session, I'll also be sure to cover service facts, package facts, and custom facts, by the way. So yeah, this will be a jam. But before we really get started here, let's just quickly recap what Ansible facts are supposed to be. Basically, facts are little information snippets about our remote systems. Usually this includes hardware, network, storage, and operating system details, among other things, and you would pretty much use this data to make better automation decisions. It's as simple as that. Now, by default, when you run playbooks with Ansible, the setup module is going to kick in, and it automatically gathers facts about each targeted host before doing any of your other tasks. Then, those facts are in scope under the Ansible_facts variable, which is a dictionary type, and we'll get to see it represented in JSON format here in just a moment. Quick aside, you can also disable the initial fact gathering if you don't need it, and I'll also make sure to show you that as well. So yeah, without further ado, let's get our hands dirty and try this out. I have a directory here called Project 7, and I've already went ahead and populated the inventory and ansible.cfg files. Here are those files just for your reference. It's pretty standard stuff, we've seen it before. And now, let's try to check out the facts of one of our managed nodes. We can do that using an ad hoc command. So I'll just run Ansible, and then pick on a machine like appserver2.labnet, and then run the setup module with -m setup. I'll hit enter here, and what I'm going to find is that I am flooded with all of this green stuff. And it's green because of this thing we see here at the bottom. Changed is false. So running the setup module to gather facts about a host is a passive operation. It's not going to make any meaningful changes to the target. Yeah. It's pretty neat, right? Like, I can scroll through a bit of this just to show you, but on your own time, I would highly recommend reading through these facts so that you can get a good feel of what data is available for you to use. Okay? Now, sometimes we might not need all of this information. It can be a bit overwhelming. So we can be selective and filter which facts we want to see. Let me show you how to do that. So just like before, I can take this command and just add -a over here on the end. And then this is for arguments, and then I can add the filter option to the setup module and filter down to one of the subfacts, like date_time. I'll hit enter here, and what I'm going to find is that I'm just looking at the date time information and nothing else. Pretty cool. So this is about as far as we'll go with ad hoc commands, and now let's move into playbooks where all the cooler stuff happens. So I'll clear the screen, and I'm going to make a YAML file here, which I'll call factdemo.yml. There we go. And now just give me 1 second while I fill out the skeleton of this playbook, and I'll be right back. Okie dokie. So I have this boring looking playbook set up here, and what I want to show you is that you can set gather_facts to no on the play level, and this is going to disable the initial fact gathering when we run the play. Personally, I like to set it to false instead of no. I just like how its syntax highlights, but you can do whatever you want. And yeah, this can be useful in scenarios where gathering facts is time consuming and unnecessary. So now let's just do a little speed comparison. I'll save this file, and since we aren't using any Ansible facts, we can leave gather facts turned off right now. And then I'll just run the playbook through the time command. So I'll just do ansible-playbook and then factdemo.yml. There we go. And it looks like it took about half a second. Okay, so what we'll do is turn on fact gathering again and try this once more. So it's definitely taking longer, and yeah, there we go. It took about a second longer. So there's definitely a difference, but it's really only going to add up when you're provisioning a lot of systems with Ansible. Okay, cool. That was a nice little experiment with that. And what we'll do now, from now on, is just stick with fact gathering enabled. So we can even remove this line. The default is to gather facts. All right, now let's talk about using the Ansible_facts dictionary. You can access individual facts using the dictionary syntax like this. So it's a variable, so I'm going to need to template it like this. And then I'll just type in Ansible_facts. Just like that. Now, maybe I should change the name up here. Maybe I want to look for the date time in seconds, something like that. There's a fact for that. It's called epoch. So what I can do is just put in date underscore time as the subfact, and then in there I can drill down to a dictionary item like epoch, and there we go. So I'll run this, and what we're going to see is, I don't need the time command, I can remove that. What we're going to see is the epoch seconds from the remote machine. And we can check how accurate that is, just for fun. Date-d now plus %s. And yeah, that looks to be in the ballpark. There we go. Now, just be aware that not all facts are dictionaries. Some are lists, and others are just like text values. So I'll go back into the fact demo file now. And just allow me to cut away for a second, and I'll give you a list of common facts. All right, so see you in a bit. Okay, cool. So here you go. This is in no way an exhaustive list, but I just wanted to show you how you might access some of the data. See, so over here, this is actually a list. This interfaces fact. So I'm drilling down into it using an index number like this. Most of these others are just like text values like architecture and distribution. And like over here is an example of a really long dictionary syntax where you might need to drill down into the UUID of one of your partitions, and it would work sort of like this. Now, let's actually go ahead and try this out and run this and see what happens. So I'll save this, and I'm going to just do the Ansible playbook command, and let's see what goes on. Okay, so it looks to be all right. We'll scroll up here a little bit. And yeah, this is what I was actually looking out for. For the default IPv6 fact, it says variable is not defined. So this looks to make sense since my lab doesn't seem to use IPv6 very much. So when a fact is not set, it's going to say it's not defined like this. This is actually a good example. We can get a closer look at why it's blank by just running the ad hoc command and filtering down to the default IPv6 fact. So I can just scroll down here again, go back to my ad hoc commands from before. Where are they? Here we go. So default underscore IPv6. Let's see what's going on there. And yeah, as expected, it's a blank dictionary, just like that. So that's why it said it's undefined. So now let's go over service facts and package facts, I guess. So let's go back into the file here, I guess. These are going to be little modules that extend the information in the Ansible facts dictionary. So what I could do is make a new task here that runs the service facts module and another task here to run the package facts module, just like that. And then just to show you, what I could do is make a debug task that prints some vars out of the Ansible facts dictionary. And what's it going to get? It's going to get the services, just like that. So that's what the new addition to the Ansible facts dictionary is going to be called. It's going to be called services. Similarly here, I could also do debug var and do the same thing, very similar, except for packages. So packages, and there we go. So just like this, now I'll be able to run this playbook again. So I'll save it, and I'll go back up here. And I'm actually going to pipe it into less this time, so that we'll be able to see what's going on in those new structures. Because it's going to be really long, we won't be able to scroll around very efficiently. Okay, so I'll run this. Wait a moment. And yeah, we can scroll down to the end, and you can see some of the packages here, just like that. But really, like, I could search for services as well. I could just search for the start of the services dictionary. Services. Looks like I need to, whoopsie. There we go. It's right there, and that's where it begins. Similarly, there's also the packages dictionary, just like that. And as you'll see in just a moment, I'm going to be playing around with the kernel package. So like I can search for that as well here too, kernel. And there it is. And So you'll notice that it's actually part of a list. Each one is like a dictionary inside of a list. Keep that in mind. It's going to be important in just a moment when I show you an example. But yeah, I'll quit out of here. And what I'll do now is whip up an example playbook in a new file, which I'll call pfacts.yml for package facts. And then I'll just type this out and I'll be right back. Okay, this is a pretty cool example. I think you'll like it, and I'd encourage pausing the video just so you can read through it as well. But this play is going to roughly show us if the current running kernel version matches the latest kernel package that we have installed. And we're doing that thanks to the information provided by the package facts. So, I mean, this is probably not the greatest way to do this type of check, but the idea here is that maybe you might need your playbook to be able to recognize when a system is not running the latest kernel package it has available. Like perhaps after a big update, you didn't reboot the system and it's running the older kernel. So this would be able to tell you about that particular state. And I mean, you can see that I'm using a debug message here, but you could take this a step further and reboot the node with the reboot module when you find that this condition is met. So another thing is the reason why I'm using this -1 index up here is because it looks like the last package in the list of packages is the latest one, and -1 is how you would wrap around to the last value in the list. Anyways, I could probably make a dedicated little video about conditionals to cover things like when statements, like the one you see over here, but it's pretty simple. You probably get the idea based on this example. And yeah, what we can do now is just run this pfacts playbook. So I'll save it, and then I'll do an Ansible playbook pfacts, and we'll just see what happens. And as expected, the conditional task is getting skipped because I don't have a newer kernel package than the current running kernel on this App Server 2 machine. But these variables up here, let me see if I can show that. They should give you a pretty good idea of how the check would have worked if a difference was found between these values. So specifically this one and the one over here. So this and this, the version and the release. That's how I put it together. Cool. So you know what, actually, let me run a system update off camera so I can show you this working. We can do that with an ad hoc command. So I could do something like Ansible appserver2.labnet-m yum, and then I'll do a name equals star state equals latest, and hopefully this doesn't break anything, but we'll just give it a go. I'm feeling a little risky today, and I'll be right back. Okay, it looks like I did something wrong. Oh, I forgot the -a. There we go. Yeah, so this will take a moment. Oh, one more thing. I have to do -b because this needs to run as root. Silly me. Okay, now I'll wait and be right back. Alrighty then, I'm back from my little break there, and assuming that there was a new kernel in this update, things should look a little more interesting now. So if I scroll up here, it looks to be based on the number of packages that this is a minor release update. So going from EL 9.1 to EL 9.2. And yeah, let me see here. Yep, it looks like there is a new kernel and it's just been installed. So yeah, we can check on the facts structure again as well by going up to the fact demo play in less, like this. And if I search for kernel here and go to one of these, yep, there we go. We can see that we have a new kernel in this list of packages. Pretty cool. So I'll quit out of there, and it looks like we got an error, but that's fine. And yeah, what we'll do is just run this playbook again. Which one is it? Yeah, pfacts.yml. And it's going to probably print the message about there being a new kernel, but we'll get to see just now. Yep, so it worked successfully. It says try rebooting to run the latest kernel package, and that's exactly what I wanted to see. So there we go, we can see that it's working. Cool. What I'll do now is just clear the screen, And I'm going to go ahead and get my service facts example together now. So I'll make a file here called sfacts.yml, just like that. And just one moment while I fill this out. Okay, you can see that this one is targeting my local controller right here. And when it comes to the service facts, I thought one thing that might be useful is to check if a systemd service is masked, because usually you manually mask a service when you don't want people to start it up and mess something up. So one example is firewall-d. You might mask firewall-d and use the nftable service instead. And maybe you want a way to check that you're working with a system that's been configured to specifically not use firewall-d. So here's one way to do that type of checkup. You can see here that I'm just looking at the status value for the firewall-d service subfact, and I'm just checking if it's masked. That's what this one statement does. So, it's kind of an edge case, but it's a relevant one. And it wouldn't be too interesting if I run this, since, firewall-d is not masked. So what I can do is just do an Ansible, just to show you, Ansible playbook sfacts.yml. We'll see what happens. Yep, it skipped the task. So that's because the status is enabled right now. But to make this a little bit more fancy and interesting, what I can do is just mask the firewall-d service on my controller node with a sudo systemctl mask firewall-d. Enter in my password, and there we go. Now I can run this playbook again, and we'll see if it works. And there we go. So the message showed up. We don't use firewall-d here, and that's just to demonstrate that this condition is going to spring into action. Cool. I'm going to go ahead and re-enable firewall-d, unmask. I think that should be enough. Unmask and enable. There we go. Yeah, and I'll just clear the screen now. And what we'll do next is talk about custom facts. So you can create custom facts by adding scripts or ini files to the facts.d directory under etc Ansible on the remote host. And these scripts can be written in any language as long as they output JSON. So let's try this out a little bit. I'll make an ini file here called fruits.fact. And remember the .facting extension. Even though it's an ini file, you need this extension like that. And then I can just put some basic variables in here. So I'll call this data. That'll be the group name. And then I'll just say apple equals true, pear equals false. There we go. So, this is pretty silly. Nobody really cares about fruits, but we'll go ahead and deploy this to see it working in just a moment. So I'll save that. And now, actually, let me show you a custom fact that's powered by a script. So this will be much more powerful. It's going to be powered by Python. So I'll create a file here, which I'll call userinfo.fact. And I'm going to go ahead and fill this out with a Python script that I have prepared. Okay, cool. So here's that Python script I was talking about. And you know what? Let me actually save this and reopen the file so that the syntax highlighting works. There we go. So yeah, this is a much more useful example at the cost of a little bit more complexity. And so the Ansible facts don't tell you very much about the users on a system. And with that in mind, we have a new gap to fill in using the script that gets that information out from the password file and outputs it in JSON format. So JSON format is required for custom facts that are executable programs. And this script, it's pretty simple, but you would probably want to design a better one than this for a production use case. You can see that I was doing something a little silly here. I just said boo-boo for the error. That's not very professional, but yeah, it's okay. I can just show you a bit of running the script now, so I'll just save it. And then I'll have to make it executable. That's really important. Userinfo.fact, and we'll just run it. There we go, we're flooded with all of this JSON, and yeah, it looks like a real jumble here, but when Ansible uses it, it's going to beautify the JSON into something a little more readable when we need to check it out in like an ad hoc command. So what we'll do is go ahead and deploy these custom facts with a playbook. So I'll just create something called cfacts.yml, I'll open this up, and I'll just write this out because it's going to be a pretty long playbook, and then I'll explain it afterwards just to save some time. Alright, so here's the custom facts playbook, and I'll just walk through a bit of this. It's going to create the facts.d directory as needed right here. That's required because that's where Ansible looks for the facts. And then we're just going to copy the custom facts. Now, something kind of special I did here, I needed to look up how to do this, is this with file glob thing. This is going to be able to glob the names of the files using a wildcard like this. And then that goes into this item field, and then it copies it. Sort of like the loop. It's sort of like with items, which is like a type of loop, but we'll talk about that stuff later. I just thought it was pretty interesting. Then, mid-play, we're actually going to reload all of the facts with the setup module again. And then, finally, we just double down by using the custom facts, just like so. So it looks pretty long here, but that's just because it's really verbose what you have to drill down to get to the fact. But we'll just be able to see it working in just a second. So I'll save this, and I'm going to clear the screen. This looks like a mess. And yeah, we'll just run Ansible playbook and cfacts.yml, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so it looks like it created that directory, it copied the facts, and it's using them. So there's our fruits fact right there. Apple is true, pear is false. And there is a piece of information from our user's dynamic custom fact, like that. Pretty cool, right? I think that was a big booyah. It definitely worked. And yeah, now we can even check these out using an ad hoc command. So I could just run Ansible app server 2.labnet-m setup-a, and I can filter for Ansible_local. That's where that's the sub fact that contains our custom facts. So I'll run this, and what we're going to find is the user account information down here at the bottom. So there it is, as well as the apple and pear facts up here. So that's pretty cool. It's kind of an Easter egg here. You'll notice that there's this jchan user right here, and that's because of the previous video I made where I introduced this user. But yeah, I guess that's kind of funny. Yeah, so it's great that it's working. Now, to close off, let's just explore a teeny tiny bit about magic variables in Ansible. So what are they, first of all? What are magic variables? Well, they're pretty much just meta information about the state of Ansible as you use Ansible. And that data is obviously going to be represented in variable form. So, I mean, like, I can just show you some of the common ones that I find to be quite handy. So that would be the, let's see if I can find it, the host vars right here. Groups, this just shows the dictionary of groups in the inventory, and also the hosts that are inside of it. It's pretty useful. There's also the inventory host name. I think I've used that in a previous video as well. And then there's these directories like inventory dir, playbook dir, and role path. So these are all pretty useful, especially once we get into role path can be quite nice to have around. And yeah, I mean, it's completely situation dependent for when you might find yourself needing to use these variables, but I thought I might as well just bring them up so that we know that they're in our toolbox and we can use them. So yeah, that's gonna about do it for this video. I'm wrapping it up here, and I hope the content has been helpful, and see ya later.